And we're live. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Justin. Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. Hello, everybody. Let's just see who's in the chats because if I don't do this, I will forget. So we got Simon from the Hermit's Cave. Hello, Simon. I have Mendy from the Artistry of Tarot. I have Sandra from the Whispering Well. Chris from Elemental Cardamancy, my main man.
Mhm.
We have, let's see, Jesse Driscoll. Hello, Jesse. Christine Nolan. Hello, Christine.
Mhm.
Welcome. Masha, Musings by Masha. Hello, Masha. And I think that's it. So hello, everybody. And how are you today, Sarah?
I'm good. I'm ready to chat.
Very good. Well, thanks for joining us. And so why don't we start by telling everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I hate that question, but we'll go with it. So I just started doing the spiritual work, the healing work, the soul work professionally about 3 years ago. Most people are surprised to learn that I really haven't been doing this, or I haven't had really major experiences until then. And I was actually working in New York City at the City University of New York in the Honors College, advising students and teaching classes. And when I moved up to the Hudson Valley, I just, got into a quiet place, was out in nature, and had already been going through a 7-year shamanic initiation by spirit and not knowing. um, and it just was one of those kind of, everybody came to me after a Reiki class. I got all the shamanic worlds literally in 3 weeks, first starting with the archangels, and thought I was going a little bit crazy. But knew I wasn't, but it felt like it. And, ever since it's been challenging, but also really rewarding to be doing this work. And for me, it's those fascinating moments of synergy and synchronicity, where everything just comes together. That's just magical. And I always say they like to dangle magical carrots in front of me. Those kind of aha moments, or how does that work? Or, oh my God, look at what just came up in the read. And it's just right on. And for me, that's what keeps me in this work. I'm currently the co-founder of At Sanctuary. That is, we are ramping up our online courses, having more events. I also do personal reads and healings. And I think that's, a little bit about me in the sense of just kind of my own journey into this world.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And so you refer to yourself as a shaman, which I find interesting. Or you say you have a
Yeah.
shamanic background.
So what's really interesting is that I actually don't refer to myself as a
Oh,
shaman, but
sorry.
everybody else does. And that actually, the title or not, I am who I am and I do what I do. But traditionally, shamans in indigenous cultures never really give themselves that title. It's the community that gives them the title. And I feel very much like that's kind of my perspective around that title.
Sure.
I'm completely honored by that title, but still for me, it's just I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And if everything fits in line with that's what is the appropriate term to call me, then wonderful. It is probably the most apt term in terms of the plethora of modalities that I'm in and that I work with. And I recommended the Hollow Bone to you, Justin. And
Yes.
I think as you start to read that, or anybody who would like to pick up the Hollow Bone, I really recommend it for anybody who doesn't really know about shamanism or shamanic practices, but would like to understand the history and what shamans actually do. But the definition and how Colleen defines it in her book is right on par with I guess my life experience, or my experience in life for the last 3 to 4 years.
That's really wonderful. And you mentioned synchronicities, and I actually have quite a bit of experience with synchronicity, and it's one of the things that sort of drew me into like the interest in sort of what we I guess would call occult or tarot type interests. And it's funny, I did 2 of your workshops, which were absolutely phenomenal. The 2 classes that I took, and the first one had to do with like ancestral sort of work, and then the second one was like what was like past lives. But it's funny because after the last one, I was thinking to myself, I need to. Well, you mentioned in the first one, you were like, you need to start working with and talking to your ancestors. So a few days ago, after the last class, my uncle calls me and he says, I need your help with something, because I'm sort of known as like the sort of family historian a little bit, just like and he says, well, we're getting a stone on the Sheridan family plot, like replaced. Something happened to the old stone, and there's like 12 people. So he gave me a list of 12 names of like past relatives, like that passed away, like probably in like the 60s or something. They've been dead for years. I just found that so interesting. I was like, because sometimes I feel like everything is a sign. And it's just like, it's like they were communicating with me in a way. It was like, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opportunity to actually research each individual and maybe do some tarot readings for each person. But ultimately what I have to do is find the date of birth and the death date is what the project's going to be. But I thought it was interesting. It was like so in sync with what I was thinking about. And it's like, well, like what were the chances of that happening? But I just thought I would share that with you. It's pretty interesting.
Sorry, I was getting it's supposed to it was supposed to happen the way it's supposed to happen. And I think we definitely have choice, and some people call it free will, but there's also, I always call it like the bumper guards in bowling, right? They're supporting us and moving us in the right direction, regardless of sometimes our choices. And there's all these signs, and if you're just aware of them, then you'll see them. Or even if you ask for them, a lot of people don't even ask for those signs. But it's really fascinating. Even numbers on the clock. I know some people will look for certain numbers. Everybody that you meet is a potential to have a message delivered to you. That at that moment, at that time, that's what you needed to hear, whether it was subjectively good, bad, or indifferent. I know at Omega, for me, every single person that would come across my path. Now, I had a learning year at Omega in order to kind of just figure out what was going on with me. So I took all of these different classes in different modalities, and then following year, I also worked as a master soul and energy healer, and taught some staff classes. But what I found, in no matter what my role was that everybody you meet in the bathroom at the cafe, and the bathroom is my favorite, particularly because you meet the people you're supposed to meet in the bathroom at Omega. And it's just indicative that if you are aware of these things, that we're all linked by this really beautiful universal web of energy that's multidimensional. And it's, your footprint is no different than somebody coming into your life at that moment and delivering a message, but they don't even know that it's a message. But you're doing the same for other people. And if you're aware of this, then you're actually connecting to that web. The more you're actually kind of building that muscle for your own connection with spirit. And if you're building that connection with spirit, you're building that muscle to understand and be aware of all those synchronicities. Everything's happening for a reason. Now, it might not be preordained or destined or fated, but what happens, I have seen I've been told to wait a moment in the parking lot, sometimes a half an hour to an hour, but don't go in. I was like, well, okay. And whoever I needed to meet in the grocery store, wasn't there yet, or had made a decision earlier not to get in the car to come earlier, but was supposed to be there earlier. And if you're aware of those things, then what happens is you're more in line with your purpose because you're being of service. And so one of the main roles for a shaman is to be of service in every aspect of your life. And for me, I don't know any other way. So coming on here is a no-brainer for me. It's just, sure, absolutely. It's no different than having a conversation because somebody needs to have a conversation in storage, which has happened to me. Like I said, the favorite places for them to have me meet people is the bathroom.
Awkward.
Yeah, but it's always for the right reasons. And what's funny is I'm no longer like embarrassed. It's just one of those things. But in that, for me to have just some human experience is I have a very strict kind of guideline for anybody who wants to work with me that way, is that unless the person comes and asks me or engages with me, I'm not going to bother somebody in, grocery shopping or getting gas. And one, that's to keep them in line in a sense, so they don't hear everybody all the time. Because I've been tapped in a pharmacy by an older gentleman for a woman who was in front of me. And I was like, no, I'm not going to just walk up to this person in that way. Now, if there's an engagement and she comes and looks at me, then that's fine. So, there needs to be that fostering on that person's part. And it's also consent. I'm a big proponent of consent of people in the physical and the people in non-physical. And when I say people in non-physical, I mean every spiritual energy, every divine being, ancestors, people we knew in past lives. I'm sure I'm going to leave somebody out. Nature energies. For me, they're no different than us. We're just in physical form. And for me, using the word people is just a sign of respect.
Sure. So when you say these messages, I'm curious to know, how they come about. Do you hear a voice?
Yeah.
Is it a thought?
Yeah. So I hear directly. What shamans called felt senses, and primarily it's the feeling in your body that helps communicate what's coming through. And there's a specific mechanism in where they vibrate your energy field, and if you're attuned to that vibration, it translates in your body. For some people, it's seeing images, getting flashes of images or sounds. It's hearing words, having full-blown conversations. It's smell, it's taste, it's feeling the emotion in your body as if it was your own. Sometimes tactile, sometimes my body just feels like it needs to move in a certain way or have certain gestures. Those are all part of that translation that happens. If you think of your body as this beautiful receiver, like a radio, what's happening is there's a vibration that's happening in your energy field, specifically from spirit. And through being an empath, because everybody who connects with spirit has empathic abilities. That's how we communicate, is in our emotional body primarily, which is ruled by our heart chakra. That vibration vibrates in our energy field. Our body translates that, and it translates it with whatever language we have. So for me, it's full-blown conversations, it's images. What's really interesting is the only time I taste anything usually is with crystals. I don't know why, it just happens to be. And it's also just feeling your whole body and being aware of the whole environment, which can be really intense at times when you're in a room where you're walking down a street and you literally have what everybody around is thinking, whether you can see them or not, whatever that general impetus is in the air. So on election night, it was just like everybody was like,
Yes.
And just understanding that it's not your own, that it's somebody else's. in the physical, but that very muscle, that very mechanism is the same in the sense of communicating with them.
Yes.
And, I will say, again, back to the bathroom, I want to say, I was going to make a joke, but they told me not to. I have a bad sense of humor sometimes, so keep me in check. But, make a long story short, when I awoke, or they awoke me at the end of that 7-year process, I was in a Reiki class, and first Reiki class, we're meditating, and I'm like, yeah. I was just drawn to this class and just kind of like guided, but not knowing I was guided. And I'm in this meditation, and I was like, okay, so who's my my guide through this process? And I heard Michael, and I was like, Archangel Michael. And he's like, yeah, and you're going to go Google me. For sure, I went and I Googled him. And I knew about the angels from being an art history major in college. But I didn't really, it wasn't really something I was necessarily into. And then the next week it was Gabriel, and he said the same thing. You're going to go Google me. And then slowly over 3 weeks, I got all the shamanic worlds, which is classified in upper world, lower world, and middle world. Upper world being those divine energies, archangels, gods and goddesses, the elders, spirit guides and guardians of more higher vibration, and the lower world being nature energies, gods and goddesses that reside over nature energies, the fairies, the elves, the forest people, crystal archetypes, animal spirit energies, and then you have the middle world, which is us, and then over the veil is the ancestral world. And for me, I was just like, okay, I know I'm not crazy, but this is way too much. And in the moment, it was the truest sense of knowing and understanding myself. Yes. And why I was here. But also when I put on the mindset of what our culture is supposed to be about, a very rational minded, logical based culture, I was like, oh, I need medication. So there was that dichotomy of having the filter I grew up with, and then knowing without a doubt that this experience was real. That, and I'm also diagnosed with a neurological condition that allows me to go into theta and REM spontaneously, and theta at will. And so at the end of the day, I was like, oh, it's just, I'm just going into REM and you don't exist. And I will say, heated arguments with Gabriel where I would just tantrums about, you're not real, I'm not going to do this. And he would just be really patient with me and wait till they were done. And then he's like, you're going to go do it. And I was like, yes. And I think for me, having gone through the last 7 years and not knowing that I had this neurological condition, which actually predisposes you to shamanism, and it's one of the oldest. They've actually traced the gene for it back into ancient civilizations. So for me, it's every shaman has this ability or has a very distinct neurological condition or brain chemistry that allows them to control theta. And I've actually been, and theta is that place where yogis and journeyers go, people who meditate, mediums, anybody who's connecting to spirit, connecting to that other side or across the veil, or the astral world, the spiritual world, whatever you call it, you have to get to that stage of theta. And that's that first stage of sleep where you're drowsy and relaxed, but your consciousness is still on. And I can tell you I'm already in theta right now. If you put an EEG on me, it would blip into, it would show you I have my brainwaves theta. But yet I can stay conscious and I can do it while I'm talking and moving around. And that's just because my brain doesn't make the right amount of chemicals to stay out of that sleep cycle. And I think the last time they had an EEG on me, I was about 2.5 minutes. It takes, and that was without really trying. Now it's about 30 seconds to a minute, just in my experience, not having any tests. But it takes most people 20 minutes to get into theta. So that 20 minutes of just laying there while you're sleeping or meditating where you're not really in it, is the time your brain takes to kind of kick over. And then I have spikes of REM in my waking state. And I've always dreamed vividly, and that's part of it too. So anytime you dream, you're actually making those connections with the astral space or the spiritual space, with guides and guardians, angels, ancestors, or whoever you're working with. That's the way that a lot of people start, is having really intense dreams.
Yes. It's interesting that, the dream world, because it's sort of, for me, dreams are proof like that, there is consciousness outside of your everyday existence. When you go to sleep and you dream, it's a whole other reality that's not physical.
Yep.
And I've had some interesting experiences with dreaming myself, where I've been in sort of that space, and I was just talking to somebody about this, but there's that space in between awake and sleep. It's like sort of the twilight kind of thing. Yeah,
that's the theta state.
Yeah, and I've had, like, I can't really explain it other than I'll get there and I'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember now. I remember this." But I don't remember it when I wake up. And it's like almost like you have certain knowledge in that sphere that you don't have. And I mean, maybe it's just a dream or something, but it's happened to me more than once where I'm in that sort of that state, and it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, and shamans traditionally call that going into spaces of non-ordinary reality, where the rules of reality as we experience it in the physical world don't apply. And so those are infinite possibilities. And what I've experienced, and when I work with clients, what they've experienced is that they get all this information, right? And they know it in the moment, but the minute they start to wake up, they think they lose it. And in fact, I counter that with, it's still there. It's just whatever that information that came over, either one didn't need to be brought to your conscious mind, that the healing and the information is working in a subconscious level, which is, for me, just as important as conscious work. And in fact, I've seen people who've healed themselves by going in, not knowing what they're seeing, but knowing what they're feeling, and knowing that it's somehow working. We don't know the mechanism behind it necessarily, or they can't explain it, but there's such a profound sense of relief and healing that it just is. And then the other thing is, you will, sometimes they kind of like preload us during the night for the day or for the week or for the month, or the year, or our lifetime, I'm told, is that information is more easily transmittable when we're sleeping or in theta, that kind of twilight phase you were talking about, because we're more receptive. And when we go back to our conscious state, we're actually putting filters of how we see the physical world. And anything that might be too jarring coming forward is actually something that they will not put you in a place where it jars your sense of reality to what the information is, in a way that would retreat you in connecting, retreat you in your life, because their whole job is to support us, to help us develop, help us stay on our soul's purpose. For those that are light workers and healers, and when I say healers, I mean, the whole spectrum, from tarot to energy work to intuitive guidance, people who pull past lives, people who are mediums, teachers, songwriters, you name it, they, and for me, are all healers. They want us to move in this direction. They want us to open up. I always make a joke that, and it's not really a joke, but, their goal is that if we sit down for a beer or have for dinner, and there's 10 people, and half of them are non-physical, that the physical people at that table can all hear them at the same time, because that is ultimately possible. I've seen the trajectory of where that does exist. Does that mean we have to move from where we are to go down this path to be where that needs to be? Is that a really long journey? Absolutely, but it's achievable. It just depends on the person. So they're never going to open somebody up or push somebody that one, it isn't part of their soul agreement. So every person who's getting involved, who's waking up, who's getting involved with all of these spiritual modalities, it's all part of their soul agreement.
Yeah. So I don't mean to interrupt you, but for those in the chat who don't know what a soul agreement is, could you just briefly explain what the soul agreement is?
So we commonly some people refer to it as a soul contract. But for me, the soul agreement is very similar. It's the same word for the same thing. It's just, it's changing the verbiage just a little, because there are ways to negotiate that when you are in the living. Consent is part of our journey. Like I said, people who are awakening, it's consensual, and it's not only in their soul agreement, meaning they've chosen certain paths, certain learning lessons, certain mantles to take up during this lifetime. That's all kind of written energetically in an agreement.
Wow.
But for me, contract always sounds so corporate and hardcore, and that we have to stay to it. And for me, going into past lives and working in the Akashic records, it's never that straightforward. We have so much choice. We have multiple plans. Plan A, plan B. I like to plan A, plan B, plan C, based on wherever we are in that moment and that choice. And then there's also sometimes where just freak things happen that is not predictable. And other people's choices impact where we are on our specific path as well.
So going back to as a child, would you say you were an intuitive child? Would you say you were more sensitive than other children, or is this something that developed as an adult?
It's funny because every psychic, medium, person who has a spiritual connection has always said, I've been doing this my whole entire life and through many other past lives. And I was like, okay, sure. I would say it's one of those, things where, I used to talk to imaginary friends. I was the only child. That's, you can reasonably logic that out. We always had this thing that in my maternal line is that the grandmothers would come, or mothers would come and get that woman who is dying. And I saw my grandmother's daughter, who had died much earlier. My grandmother's mother, sorry. My grandmother's mother,
who had died when she,
yep. Sorry. I'm getting yelled at now. Whoops. She died when my grandmother was really young, but I saw her come to get my grandmother on her deathbed. Okay, cool. And then on to college, kind of one of those things. And, I was avid sci-fi, fantasy, but to actually, it's real, to actually see it, experience it. And I'm still blown away when I talk to people and what I'm saying resonates with them in a way that there are details that I shouldn't know and possibly can't know. And that's what's so magical about it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I mean, I know looking back and talking with them all, talking with my guides, is that they were always around. The only thing I can remember really consistently as a child knowing was somebody was in the room at night and getting freaked out and like literally sleeping under the covers. And I want to say nearly suffocating myself to do that because I could feel them in the room. I just didn't have language or anybody to contextualize it or to talk to. But I also think there's some part of them wanting me to have, quote, a normal life. And not awakening me until after I'd gone through that shamanic initiation.
Yes. So is there a lights? Is it? Can you turn the switch off? I mean, like, let's say you want to, be with your friends, or you want to go to bed, or you want some alone time. Do you have the ability to kind of shut them out, or are they just always there and you have to deal with it?
They're always there to some extent. Sometimes I think they take a vacation, quite honestly, for me. No, like I say I'm never alone, like including the bathroom. Somebody's always in the bathroom with me. And now it's become a joke. It's really now a joke in everybody's, portfolio of amusement on my part. Um, I'm, it's not necessarily there. I have learned how to use my energy system to get space and how to create boundaries to get space. And when I mean boundaries, are just kind of like written agreements, like, please work with me this way. This is how you'll work with me. If you don't, then I'm not going to answer the phone call. Or literally, get the fuck out. Sorry, there's been a couple where you're just like, and if anybody knows me, they know that I don't really swear all that much, but
well, you're allowed to on this show, so it's good. It's like
okay,
HBO.
Yeah, okay. I can't believe no 5-second rule. So, but with spirit, I'll use curse words because if there's an adamant energy to that those words that is solid. It's solid and recognizable to anybody on any frequency. But trying to. No, and then I have my brain chemistry is such that I literally don't make enough chemicals to stay out of those brain waves in which you connect.
Yes.
So, is actually the only way that I get a semi-break is if I'm doing this work, because I'm actually in theta enough that I store up those chemicals to use and function later. And you'll see in the hollow bone, the shamans will actually report getting sick if they don't do this work. It's kind of one of those soul agreement things that force people into this work. And quite honestly, I wouldn't necessarily be doing what I'm doing if it hadn't been for this and literally dropping my old life off my radar. I was very content with my job. I loved my students. I liked my salary because we all have to survive in a fiscal related world. I chose to leave a 18-year marriage because I knew that we were not on the same path. And so all of these kind of doors started to shut, things started to fall away. And this was kind of my only path. And because it can literally be challenging, try driving when you have an archangel talking to you. Sometimes that's not the best time to be talking to an archangel or a tree spirit that you've just passed on the road. And so for me, it's constantly communicating, you guys can't come in here, but if I make time for them, whether I'm working with a client or I'm doing my own personal spiritual practice, I get more space.
Yeah. So, I see that you work with tarot a lot, and I've never really seen too many mediums use tarot. I've seen you're either a tarot reader or you're a medium, at least in my experience. Now, I don't see many, but I found it fascinating and I love it. I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of tarot, but so what role does tarot play for you in your readings?
So for me, it's language, and what I've learned is that again, when they vibrate your energy field and you're translating, you're only as good as your language base. So your verbal language, your experiences, positive, negative, indifferent. So the traumas, the tortures, the hardships are all energetic language that they can vibrate. And thanks, Nancy.
I'm watching the chat here, but I'm like, oh, sorry. But I'm so interested in what Sera's saying. We're going to get to the guys in the chats. We're going to open up the chats in just a bit here. But continue, Sera.
So where was I? Tarot is language. So for me, one of the things I get harassed about the most on the from the ancestral realm is I don't know any other language but English, a little French, and they have to get a spiritual translator on their side, literally somebody in spirit to translate for the person, which actually is quite interesting. But so everything we've seen, we've thought, we've felt, experiences, movies, songs, it's all, if we don't know it, we'll feel the energy, but it will feel blocked because there's nothing that they can correlate it to, and they try to get as close to possible, as close as possible as they can for that particular message. So tarot is this really beautiful language in a deck of cards. And Pamela actually channeled the tarot, and that for me is one of her biggest contributions in her life, towards, for the spiritual community, and for her life, her purpose in essence. And the more tarot decks we have out there, the more the shifts of those energies and the messages are different, the more language we have. So the Victorian Romance Tarot, something I use for romantic reads, along with the Tarot of Sexual Magic to add the sex in there, I wouldn't use for necessarily any other read. And so it's also what you're comfortable with too, as a tarot reader, what you're drawn to, because that is going to be the visual language that you see. And that if you do work with spirit, which I believe every tarot reader, everybody who picks up a tarot deck has a specific tarot guide.
Yeah.
Who works with them, and they're specific to tarot. That doesn't mean you don't have other guides, but you have the guide, and you have the consciousness of the deck itself. So if you're using the same deck over and over and have built this really beautiful relationship, that deck actually takes on this conscious energy of its own, and will work with you to do the best reads. And I think it's also really accessible for people who are getting into spirituality, who are awakening but don't know what to do, don't know how to make the connection, or are a little bit too shy, reserved, or fearful of more traditional routes, like connecting through meditation or a class where there isn't any visual guidance. You're doing it through your body and through your mind. That this is a really beautiful way to start people. It's also like visual confirmation for the client. So you could be getting all of this information, and they may or may not take it at face value. But when you flip over that card, and there's that image that's associated with what you just talked about, there's that click for them. And so I think there's so many different ways that you can use tarot,
Yes,
to enhance that for people.
yeah. So if someone is just sort of starting out on this journey, and they think that they may have some sort of intuition, or I guess the abilities would be the word I would use. What sort of advice could you offer them?
Well, first of all, for anybody who's working in tarot, you're going to be pushed specifically this year to branch out. There's just, it's if you don't, it's going to be harder. Like, in branching out could be energy work, or it could be talking to deceased loved ones, could be working in the ancestral world, or bringing in past life energy using the Akashic records. And it's not that you're going to get away from tarot, but you're learning other modalities, because every modality is connected in with each other.
Yes.
So, you could say most people would use tarot as an intuitive guidance. That's where most people kind of fall in that range, if you were to look at those modalities that don't usually have some kind of visual representation. So everybody in tarot is tapping into how they connect spiritually. And so I feel like there's an advancement that's going to take place. And just to let everyone know, that's what I'm being told right now, is that if you're being pushed, everybody who's listening to this is going to be pushed to expand on their knowledge. That doesn't mean getting away from tarot. It means learning that different modality and bringing it back to tarot. or moving on to your next step. Because I think a lot of you, at least half of you, will move on to a different discipline and bring tarot in. Like tarot is always going to be there, but you're really going to be moving on. Nope, that's it. Okay. Did I answer your question? Sorry,
Yes.
got
No,
a lot
you
of people
did.
talking.
You did. You
Okay.
did brilliantly, actually. So how do you feel about doing some readings for people in the chat? Would that be okay?
Can you comment about my age first?
Exactly.
Um,
So
just because it's a fun thing. So I am 43 years young. And what happens when you work as a shaman, or you are a shaman and you're working in connecting with the other side? And for me, I'm in theta probably 8 to 10 hours a day, whether I want to be or not. And so when you're over there, you're tapping into this universal life force energy, Reiki, or Ki, or Qigong, Tai Chi. All of those practices are about cultivating energy in one system. So what happens is you have something called reverse aging, where the body actually responds to that uptake in energy. And there are shamans, Kiro shamans in Peru that I have met that are 90, in their late 90s, going on 100, that look like they're in their 60s. So for me, I would say about maybe a month into my professional practice, I started getting clients who were like, "You're too young to be doing this work," because they thought I was 18, 19, 20. And thanks, Christine. And yeah, it's like a joke. If Zoe's on the chat, which I don't know if she is, but she likes to use it as a party game if I'm around my age. So
Zoe's here. Zoe's definitely here. I see her. I was looking for one of her comments, but I can't find them right now. Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, when you said you were married for 18 years, I had the same reaction with the first workshop. I was like, 18 years? I was like, she's younger than me. I was like, am I that old? Jeez. I'm like, 18 years is a long time to be with someone, but that's fantastic. Well, you look great. So I guess we could open up the chats here if that's okay with you, and I'm going to let you
yeah.
just do your thing.
Well,
And we'll keep
you're
track
gonna
of the.
tell me. You're
Of
gonna tell
of
me the
course.
questions.
I'm here
Who has
for
questions?
I'm your trusty assistant here.
Okay.
I'm going to be with you every step of the way here, and whatever you need me to do, just let me know. But I would ask people in the chat, if you do have a question for Sera, please put it in all caps, and just so we can see it. And I will put the question up on the board, and if my mods could help me sort of keep track of the questions and bring it to my attention if you have any. So I have one question here. It's not a reading question, but it's just, what kind of shamanism are you practicing? And that's a
That's a really good question. I have been initiated by the Kiro in certain initiated rites. I'm an earth keeper and a womb keeper, but I also come from shamanic Reiki practice. I would say okay, so this is what they want me to say. It's really kind of hard to label. I'm not coming from a pure indigenous, one tribe, one thought of being. I'm coming from a common practice. So there are common practices from indigenous peoples, many of which have been lost because of acculturation and conquering nations or prosecution. But okay, I'm coming from a place. Okay, all right. See, Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so after I had physical teachers, after I spent a year at Omega and working with teachers who were in the physical, Spirit really is the one who's taught me the most, and clients, particularly their spirit guides as well. The reason I know what I know is because of Spirit and because of my clients. But I'm working in an overall mechanism of the process of shamanism, not in any one tradition. And the reason I'm doing that, and this is directly from them, is that my goal, my purpose is to help normalize the awakening process for people, and then to help the healers learn and to teach and to expand their connection. And the only way for me to do that in a globalized world is to be open to everything and every possibility, which in terms of shamanism, you'll see that that's the way shamans operate. It's just, if they're coming from any one specific tradition, it's because they're focused on their community. And so for me, my community is global. So my job is to bring in all of these different traditions, all of these different religious, I'll say religious belief systems, but using those religious belief systems to work within the spiritual systems. So, for example, archangels are in many of the Christian faiths, Protestant and Catholic, but as well as Sumerian and Babylonian, and they can even be traced back into Egypt, but they have different names. And so if I'm not working cross-culturally, I can't help make that connection, or I can't see that connection. I don't have that language. So for me, again, it's not one faith, it's not one set of ideas, it's the process. And that's to be accessible to anybody, and to honor any tradition. And I would say that's how I work, is it's the process of connecting, because for me, my job is to hold sacred space for everybody to make that connection. Unlike comparatively to religious institutions or structures, you have to go through an institution, you have to go through a priest, you have to go through a clergyman, you have to go through somebody to access that.
Yes.
I'm just holding space, energetic space, bringing awareness, contextualize, normalizing. There's a lot of times where somebody will come in, introduce themselves in spirit to that person in front of me. And all I am is being a witness for them so that they know that somebody else can see and hear and feel that, what they're feeling. And again, normalization, putting language for them around it. And then their role, their job is to go build that relationship. I can give them tools, but my job is not to foster that in the sense of being that go-between. And so for me, working in the process way, working in how and why this all works the way it does, and being a shaman as going through that traditional process in terms of spirit, it's all giving me the language and all giving me the insight to I guess do that. And somebody just keeps flashing the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, which is why a lot of shamans from different cultures, including and specifically the Kiro, are coming out of the Andes and traveling the world and bringing their knowledge to mainly Western society, is that the prophecy is there can't be peace on earth. There can't be this utopia. And I'm summarizing it, I'm generalizing it. There can't be this utopia until the West, or the condor and the eagle meet, meaning Western civilization, indigenous civilization, the North and the South. There's all these interpretations. And so for me, I feel like I'm part of that bridge and that process for people who've been raised in the mainstream normal social construct that we all are living in.
Yeah, there's definitely something that has been lost, from the time of shamanism to, organized religion, and everything has changed. But you see sort of a glimpse of it when you look at the indigenous peoples and how they're still, they're very, they have this shamanic based religions, or faiths, I should say, not religions. So I saw a question here. Well, go ahead. Did you want to comment on that?
Nope.
There is there's a sort of a political question here. I think I'm going to just put it up. Will Trump admit defeat? I think he already did yesterday, didn't he? Didn't he say, "Oh, I lost, but it wasn't my fault," or something like that? I think he said he lost, but it was rigged. But if you want to comment on that,
I don't like to get too much into politics.
I don't either. I'd rather not, but it was there.
Let's reframe. Can we reframe the question a little bit, Christine? Because Christine is the one who I'm gonna ask kind of the tone and the tenor, because I think even if Trump says those words, and listen, I haven't been watching the news lately because quite honestly, I've needed a little bit of a detox, is that there's still divisiveness and he can incite that. So I'm wondering, is he going to go respectfully and politely and professionally, or is he going to stir up divisive ways of being? That's kind of where I wanted to set that question, if that's okay. Just because there's defeat and then there's,
Christine, you want to clarify that for us? Do you want Christine? Oh, here she is. Okay, here we go. So, will our country be unified? That's a good one.
So I'm using the Rider-Waite for this one. So I'm really getting a resounding no. And I'm waiting for somebody to challenge the no, because sometimes they'll have conversations amongst themselves that I'll hear. They're just saying no. And this is why. For me, sometimes this card is past lives. And that's what is coming up. We're reliving a time of, it's a time of idealistic revolution, social revolution, but it's going back specifically to World War II, to the American Revolution. There's a war with India. I don't have the name for it necessarily, but there was a major impact in India at some point when the British and French were occupying it that changed the continent. So if anybody's a history major, maybe you can shed some light. But everybody here that's here is supposed to be here. It's part of our learning agreement, our soul's destiny, because a lot of us, all of us, especially in this chat, have seen, everybody on earth has seen this before. So this is past life. Two ideologies. Sorry. So this is really fascinating. These are the two ideologies. So Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Cups. which is really fascinating if you think about it.
Yes.
Socially.
I agree.
You have the physically, the monetary, the materialistic driven, the very physical. They're very much worried about themselves and what's going on in the world. They're not really connected to their spirituality. They're not seeing deeper beyond. And so those people who, and it's a real clear distinction here, and the distinction's only going to get stronger over the next year or two. And it's because people are on their spiritual journey, on their spiritual path. And those who are, and this doesn't necessarily mean healers, but the people who are embracing the change, the social change, there's a depth and understanding in their soul, even if they can't communicate it consciously. Their soul understands this much, much, much more deeper. And with the healers, it's implied, it's explicit. There's people who have been and will continue to have flashes of past lives where we're repeating the future. And then with the Ace of Pentacles, they're really just, they're all stuck in the physical, that normal social construct. And they can't get past that. And including in the physical is the expression of human emotion, and not understanding that emotion is part of our nature, is part of our spiritual being. So there's a disconnect with their emotion, and really understanding they're actually literally running away from what they feel. They're bottling it up, and they're turning to more materialistic things, more physical things. And physical things are things that are happening in the physical world, and seeing it at very flat face value, not really understanding things in totality.
That's very interesting. I think that's like the age-old, debate too. Liberal versus conservative. If you look at what are sort of more empathetic and and then you have like the more earthly sort of practical view. Those were perfect cards to get for that. I think. Very interesting. Let's see here.
I have. Yeah.
Go. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. If you're not done, please continue.
No. No, they said no. This is why we're all here, people in the chat room. So I feel like this is self-explanatory in a sense. But, to go a little bit deeper, it's about us wanting unity, us wanting peace. And it's not the traditional peace on earth, but the stillness. It's space for everybody to be connected. And with the rainbow, for me, that just symbolizes the chakra system, which is how we strengthen our connection energetically. There's actually mechanics to it. And understanding that all the cups, all the connections are within, it's all emotion, right? So cups, the suit itself is a very emotional body of work. And so if you've got the idea that our connection and the way we translate is all through our emotional body, we have to have a beautiful understanding as empaths of our own emotion and emotion in general. And so that in its sense is fueling this connection. It's working with the energy system to create peace, to create family, to create community, to go back to those times when we're connecting with each other on a much more deeper level other than surface. It's that me feeling what you're feeling, because that impacts me regardless. If I say something stupid, I'm going to feel it if it hits you in a very specific way. Or if I think I'm being funny but I'm being sarcastic in it, but it falls flat, I'm going to understand because I'm going to feel what you just felt. And so the idea is us connecting and learning to connect with each other on a more profound, deeper energetic way. Because at the end of the day, if I'm going to feel that I hurt you, why would I do that? Because I'm just going to feel it myself. And so you go back to people who are just living in that face value, who are shutting their emotions down. They're moving away from that. And then people who are embracing their emotions and working on their traumas, unpacking their traumas, the challenging times. It's not necessarily about letting go. It's about being aware how you feel. It's no longer hiding that. That is spiritual connection. That is understanding who you are, not in the essence of giving yourself permission to feel and forgive. That's how we feel, and that's how we forgive others. That's when true compassion can come in, is if we can forgive ourselves. For many of us living in this normal social construct, we have all these expectations or filters placed on us that if we fear not living up to them, we in essence aren't living in our authentic emotional selves. And that hinders our ability to connect with others as well as spirit. Okay. They said they're done now.
Oh, good. Thank you. That was wonderful. That was really, really something. So I have a question here, but I don't quite understand it. Maybe let's see if you understand it here. It says, well, thank you for the compliment, Tandra. And Christine, you'll have to let us know how that was for you.
Tandra, the rider weight.
Oh, okay. I see. All right. She was just asking. Okay. I see.
Yeah, that's the one I'm using right now.
Let's see what we have here. Okay. Here's another here. This is from Trend 210. Is there any guidance on why I feel so stuck right now? Career especially.
I'm supposed to ask, are you okay with this being in a public forum?
Yeah, let us know, Trend 210.
Specifically, that will let me go deeper. That's me getting consent from you, especially with other people around.
Yeah, and if my mods can, well, I should be able to see it, but if for some reason,
I know you're asking the question, but I'm being asked to ask you because to go deeper, to go kind of where you want us to go, and not be superficial, I would need consent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm using the Crow Tarot. History behind the actual deck I'm using is this was a gift from Zoe. Thank you, Zoe, if you're on the channel. She was very kind to give me, I believe, her first edition Crow Tarot deck. Well, the basic answer there, they're starting out with a very simple answer for me, and is that you're not supposed to be there any longer. You're not supposed to be doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. It's kind of like pushing a baby bird out of the nest to help them fly. So there's this push from your guides to keep you going and keep you moving and not let you get comfortable. In a sense, that's not the right word, but get seated. It's this, not getting stuck. It has to be action oriented, and now is the time. Especially somebody saying if you want to get on the train with everybody else of who's like-minded. And they said one of the main things is when you change perspective and do what you really want to do, it's the fear that's coming up, the self-doubt, but the self-doubt is really, it's past life driven. Geez, I feel like don't need right now the tarot. Okay. So this is the underlying reason, the real gut. It's kind of almost semi-subconscious. There's awareness to it, but it's like an iceberg. You see a lot of it, but there's much more underneath, and that's temperance. So it's the fear of pouring the cup into one that you don't know if you have yet. There's also a lot of stuff to emotionally unpack as to why you feel stuck. And it has to do with past lives. And temperance is like one foot in one world and 1 foot in the other. And so there needs to be, it's like this choice. I don't know if I should go this way. I don't know if I should go that way. The way I want to go is to get in the water with that other cup and get rid of the empty cup that I'm pouring everything into. So your time and your attention, where are you putting your time and attention? Because that's this. You're pouring it into something that at the end of the day, you're not really following. So the real focus, the real passion is being poured into a cup that you don't have a tactile feel around. And so now it's time to choose. Here's how to think about it. Page of Wands. You have to take action. This is about being okay to have your voice heard, to be out there, to be, it's almost like to be exposed with the sun. And so there's movement in this. There needs to be a change. So these are the challenges. The Eight of Wands. So it feels like you're flying like into the fray. It feels like you're flying into a battle. But they're purposely, this is spirit putting things in your way. That internal stuckness is about driving you in a new direction. They want you to go fly a different way. And the King of Wands. It's really, this is part of it. This is about owning who you are and not being afraid of it. So what you really want to do, and you're being called to this, you're being called to spiritual work. You're being called as a healer, but there's much more to it. Pushing the envelope in the field. So this is going back to temperance. It's like you're putting energy in. You're putting all this energy in, but it's into the spiritual work. Like, where is your focus? Your focus is not necessarily on where it should be. And then who's keeping you back? So the Six of Swords. So it's understanding the naysayers, and it's also internal as well as external. So it's like you're avoiding the swords and avoiding judgment on what you really want to do, who you really want to become or be. And it isn't anybody you haven't been before. It's different. And it's understanding that if you're not embracing this work, you're leaving parts of you behind. So crows, if you ever see a murder of crows, it's said that Native Americans are having a powwow. And so for me, these feathers are aspects of your spiritual self that are getting left behind because you're not following your passion, your gut. But you have to look at it differently. You're looking at it in the way that in the way we've been taught to look at spirituality or tarot or any of the modalities. It's about stepping back and shifting perspective. And this is where you're going right now. Everything you're going through right now and will continue to go through for the next several months is about understanding what binds you. And it's also letting yourself free yourself from the confines. And it's also letting spirit come in and help you. And they're saying directly, it's learning to live with the fear of the unseen. These are the exact words. I'm going to leave them with you. It's learning to live with the fear of the unseen, but knowing what you know and how to go about it. Those are the direct words. I'm not quite sure what that exactly means. I'm going to let you interpret it.
That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal. Okay, hold on just a moment. I'm just trying to I was so paying attention to what you were saying. I lost the chat here. Okay, so questions. Okay, so that Trend 210, please let us know, give us some feedback on that, if you liked it. And there was another question here.
Somebody just said she needs, Trin, you need to be doing more research. There's a lot more research in the terms of what you would do if your heart's desire, what your heart's desire is to combine like work or career with your life so that it isn't work or career, but that you should go ahead and write down, as if you had enough money, as if you had enough resources, write down what you want your life to look like on a daily basis, on a spiritual, physical basis, and get it down on paper so you can see it. That's really important. And then you're gonna flip the page and you're gonna write all the fears associated with why you think that can't happen.
Excellent. So we got Amy CQ. How is the pandemic going to continue and resolve? This is something that's very much on everybody's mind.
First and foremost, wait, what? Okay, never mind. Okay. So I dropped one card and they're not letting me flip it over, but I'm just going to let you know that I dropped one card. We'll see what happens with it. Okay, this is where we've been. So the Hanged Man. Not only individually, but society, we're stuck. We're stuck hanging upside down. We're literally stuck. Chained, bound. internally as well as externally. So externally being lockdowns, social distancing, other restrictions that other people may have based on where they live. But internally, it's also challenging people to go inward in a way to find their divine selves, even if it is in an odd way, in a way that's a predicament. That the virus itself is almost like this pillar. It's holding us, but it's holding us upside down so we can see a completely different perspective, because that's how we move forward. Where we're going, Page of Wands. So there's action in the sense of the virus. This is the Page of Wands is the virus. Somebody's yelling at me very cheekily. You know, the Page of Wands traditionally is the most flirty, right? The most gregarious of all the pages. The one who's seemingly most action oriented, most sexual in nature as well. But it's this, the virus itself, its conscious energy is like, yeah, let everybody wear masks. I'm gonna flirt with you. You know, I'm gonna pursue you. It might be in a strange way, an odd way that, you know, we all think of a virus as not having a conscious energy, but the virus itself is really just quite happy to romance us in this weird way. What we need to keep in mind. So it's not over yet. We're still kind of stuck on our islands. But we're also not getting our emotional needs met by being able to not necessarily embrace normal life again, but the connection, the physical connection with each other is entirely important to human beings. Physiologically, they've done studies that people do better when they're touched, they're hugged, and so part of our situation for us is that fatigue we're feeling about all of this is because we're not getting our cup filled by friends, family, perhaps partners or people you're dating that you can't physically connect with, because he's on an island. He's close to shore or close to the boat that's coming. So there's the boat in the background. I feel like he's close to shore, but that's just because my eyes navigate towards this green and feel like it is part of it's part of the water. But for me in this, when I'm looking at the camera backwards, it looks like land. But the boat, there's a vaccine coming. So what we can do, this is about our own rebirth. It's understanding that there will be a lot more people who die. But death for me is always rebirth. It's challenging. It's being aware and understanding that this is challenging all of our major institutions. But there's also sunshine in the back. So there's a dawning. There's a movement towards this ending, but not in the near future. We're kind of stuck. So there's a lot of politics. So for me, I'm looking at the church behind them. And for me, this is an institution. This is government. There's light, but it's also like we're feeling left out in the cold. And so for right now, in this moment, that's it's just the state is the government is not responding. And I'll just say the U.S. government. So, I won't, this isn't for anybody who's maybe in another country. But this particular card is for the U.S. And then I'm just asking about next year. So the challenges, Queen of Swords. The challenges will be distributing the vaccine. It'll be deciding if it's safe. There's a safety thing here. There's it's not a recall, but a halting, a stopping. It's almost like she's sitting on something and she's waiting to take action. But something's going on with the vaccines. There's a weirdness around it. So, and the Fool. So there's something coming. It's not going to come. This isn't probably going to resolve itself until June. That's kind of how I feel. There's something really bright about this card and springtime. So like early June. And the vaccine is the way, because for me, I just looked at this and this was like a needle. So this is major hurdles. This is what will happen if kind of there's an unexpected twist and turn. So when I see timelines, I actually see them at a point where they come together. And then they literally like kind of spread out in front of me, like all of these different threads. And it's about knowing the feel, or knowing that there's a lot of different possibilities to any one predictable time period. And a lot of that has to do with, well, how far away is it? Because if it's far away time-wise, what happens is there's more possibility for other people's choices to influence which thread actually we get on, or if we're disrupted and have to go on to another thread of time. And so for me right now, there's so many different possibilities to kinks in the plan that if I feel like you guys are all feeling very unsettled and antsy and what I call itchy. It's kind of like I want to do something. I want this to be over with, but then I have to just sit here. And I have to kind of play by the rules in the sense of what's going on with the world, whether that's wearing a mask, but more importantly, just self-soothing, calming yourself, or finding some way to move on, whether that's a distraction or change in perspective. That there will be a continuous nature of that. And they're saying don't get caught up with the politics of it, because there's going to be a tremendous amount of politicking around it. And so it's understand that there are so many different ways for so many people in this chat because of where you live, and how it ends is there's so many different ways. There's so many different ways of getting there. But it's not going to be smooth by any means.
Oh, okay. Well, Jen, sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Continue.
They just want one more card. This is kind of the outcomes. So there's going to be lasting effects from the pandemic. And it's just to be aware. You can view these as tools, the swords, or you can view them as what you've lost. You can lament over the last year or so. But that's perspective. At the end of the pandemic, how things have changed, it's about your perspective. Because she, at the end of the day, she might not be bound, but she perceives being bound. And so she may stay like that, or she can, simply wiggle out of it and lift her blindfold. And then all of a sudden, everything that she thought were swords are now tools. And so it's perspective at the end of the day when you walk out of the pandemic. It's about understanding that what you're lamenting, what you've lost, because society is changing and is going to remain irrevocably altered from this. But that's the way it's supposed to be. That's where you hear people talk about ascension, shifts in vibrations, people awakening. This is all part of it. That virus has a conscious energy, and it's here for a reason. There are people who wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to take classes in spirituality or really do internal work. Some of us don't want to do internal work because it's hard, but it's not only giving us the opportunity, it's demanding it. And it's demanding that we think about the world in a much different way, in a more compassionate way. That's even though there's this cavalierness to the virus, it's not about the virus itself. It's about how we choose to realize that this virus is a product of Mother Earth, and that she's created this because there's too many people on the planet. And unfortunately, if we don't realize it, if we can't control how we work with the earth and realize that we are in essence self-sabotaging ourselves, she's wise enough to know that the ecosystems have to be balanced. And, for me, that message is very clear that this is a direct response to balancing the ecosystems. So in essence, we as human beings can survive too.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Very, very nice. And so I have Jessie Driscoll next. We missed her question a while back or some sort of thing. And then I have, I believe, Masha and Thomas after that. So I just want to let you guys know I do know you're there. So thanks for hanging in there. Appreciate it. I'm trying to keep track of the chats here. But so we got Jessie wants to know about her past lives. She lived with her father, husband, or daughter. I guess is that a question, Jessie? Yeah, I think so. I think yeah.
I think what we're going to try to do is do a card for each of them. Maybe 2 for your daughter. We'll see.
So father, husband, daughter. I'm going to hide that just so people can see you.
Thanks.
It covers your face, so I'd like to keep it up, but it's very distracting.
Okay. So for your father, so I'm just gonna, so that we can really just go dive deep into that, I'm just gonna put that card aside and just go into the records themselves. So he's not part of your soul group. He's in another soul group. So let me explain that. So we have soul families. We have small clusters of souls that we work with, and they can be in any number, these soul families. Soul families also belong to soul groups, and there can be a variety of number of soul families in soul groups. There's no set number, but these are souls that are working with each other, both supportive and in a challenging role. So what they're telling me is that your father is not part of a soul group, your soul group. He's in an ancillary soul group. And so there'll be a lot of back and forth. It's just a matter of where your souls are evolving, how they're evolving, what learning lessons that you need, just in general, who's the best fit. Sometimes it is about making amends in lives. There's a really strong connection with him because you've worked with him before, but there's also some tension. There's also there's a resolution that is it's trying to be worked out. And just for sake of brevity, and they're also saying just because there's a lot of information in his own privacy, they just like to leave it at that. This is your daughter. Queen of Pentacles. She's in your soul group. She's someone you like to work with. There's a real sweetness to her. I almost see lemonade, pink lemonade particularly. There's a real sweetness to her. She's misunderstood. And there's this really beautiful relationship that you two have developed over past lives. And it's supportive, but there's also this there's a playfulness, but there's also, it's not contentious necessarily, but there's some strife between the two of you in these kind of very subtle little ways. But you guys have been in multiple past lives. There's that really strong connection. It's also why she's with you in this lifetime. You're holding her hands through some really difficult situations. And you're the only one that can do this in the sense of soul work and your past experiences, which are really, really deep in terms of you've been here since old Lemuria. And your husband, right? Husband. 7 of Pentacles. There's a strong connection. He's part of your soul family, but this is the beginning of this is the beginning of you two working in this kind of romantic partnered kind of way. So if that explains how the relationship is going, there's this enamoredness, but there's also trying to figure each other out. So there is a strong connection, but it's much more newer than you think. And it's planting seeds for future lifetimes or potential future lifetimes, because the trajectory, and they're saying it's okay to say this, is that you will work with each other again, but based on what happens this lifetime, it's about figuring out what's the best relationship for the best learning lessons. And there will potentially be, there's going to be opportunities where he doesn't best serve you in your learning lessons in the future. But the most important thing right now is understanding that relationship is about, it's about working together, and it's hard work. It's really allowing each other to get in the dirt or the mud, and work it out, and know that however that relationship looks, feels, the trajectory, that's part of your soul agreement with him, is that it's the relationship itself, and how you work together is about getting in the dirt and just figuring it out.
Okay. Are you finished there, or?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
good. Okay. No, I didn't want to interrupt you, but so we have Thomas. I finally found Thomas's questions here. Thomas Santani, is my daughter Jessica going to get a job? Be okay? Get out of her own way.
Okay. Well, Thomas, what I will say is, when people ask about other people, there's a lot of privacy in their trajectory. So I will give you as much information as I'm allowed to, and that's just to maintain privacy. But also they said they're going to advise you as how you can reframe what she's going through so that you can be a bit more settled in it. That doesn't mean it's, it's not challenging, but she's got her own, like, this, she's got her own stuff to work out. They want me to use the Crow Tarot for this one. So they're saying she's going to be okay. It's just not necessarily in the time frame that you're expecting or want. She's got to learn from her mistakes, but she needs the experience. Like there's an experience of, okay. So they're saying everything that she's going through, every misstep, every non-ordinary way of thinking about where she wants to go, that's all part of her journey. She needs to go through this process. Her soul is demanding it. So this is where she is. The King of Cups. She's needing to be true to her emotions. Plain, it's just, she's empathic. And there's something about her environment that she needs to be in a place that's settled energetically. A lot of commotion, a lot of it does something disruptive to her energy system. So she's trying to figure out the best thing for her and where she wants to go. It's not that she doesn't want to disappoint you. She's just having to rectify and it's not just how she feels, but how her body feels. And this is her biggest challenge. The Nine of Cups. Or the Eight of Cups, sorry. Her biggest challenge is feeling not heard, not seen, feeling empty. She's got to do something that she loves. That's the most important thing. You want her to have somebody's joking in the background. You want to have her have a job that she's going to be there and stay there and be successful. She's got to do something that she loves to do and fills her up. And that it's that emotion. And that there's a draining quality to the people that she's around. If she's in an environment that drains her, it's gonna sap everything from her and lead to potentially to make her physically sick. This is how you should think about it. Seven of Pentacles. she's doing her, or Eight of Pentacles. Oh my God. Eight of Pentacles. She's doing her work. She's as focused as she can be. And she's trying to figure it out. She may not be necessarily working on it financially, but she's doing her own work. She's dialoguing with herself. She's putting focus into it. It's just, she may not be showing that to you. And then this is the outcome. Ten of Swords. She's going through a rebirthing process, but she's got to have room to make mistakes. And then sorry guys, I am having a really hard time with the backwards.
Yeah, I know that's StreamYard. It switches everything.
So the Seven of Cups. So there's opportunities coming. It's just she's got to go through this process. And it's kind of like this. There's a rebirth happening for her. It's like she sees the opportunities. It's another rebirth. It's another sword. It's her also coming to terms with just who she is and being okay to feel the way she feels. And so in a weird way, with that card, it's almost like every time we learn a little bit about ourselves in our truest sense, it hurts. Because we're also working on shedding those things that don't serve us. And sometimes if they've been in our lives and we've used them as crutches or compensation, that those belief systems, those structures, to remove them for something that serves us better, you would think wouldn't hurt, but it does hurt. There's a you learn better when you make mistakes, but there's also you growing and learning is painful. So she's in that process. I hope that gave you clarification and how to just approach her a little bit differently. See where she's coming from.
So I think we have just one more, if I'm not mistaken. And let me just double check, but I have Masha here from Musings with Masha. What action shall I take to live in alignment with my higher purpose? And consent is given. That was very nice of her to.
Thank you, Masha.
Let me just make sure that's not the last, though.
It's funny because I got You Already Are, and then I pulled the Magician out of the Mother piece. So you're already doing it. It's going to start to evolve, though. And this is where you've given consent, but you need to verbally keep asking for signs. Keep asking for what you want. Go deeper. Like there's so much that you're going to be able to bring, going back to that the Magician. It's now building a toolbox and exploring so that you know that you're in the right modality. And this is spiritually driven. There's a depth and level of connection you haven't reached. And it's more of what I'm getting is you have no idea what you can do. And stop doubting yourself. It's exploration. It's taking classes that you're drawn to. It's reading books that you feel like you just have to read. And understand there's going to be books that when you read them, they're going to feel like you've read them before. Just keep reading them. Feel free to skim if you need to. Now, it may feel like you're stuck right now, and you've been feeling like you're stuck on and off. But that stuckness is about inaction, not being stuck for you particularly. And so the 9 of Swords, which is really interesting with the Mother piece, right? So being stuck, this kind of bound feeling, but you're really not. It's really interesting. I don't know if you guys can see this, but in the middle is like this sword with a star. It's like the sword of destiny. So in this kind of trapped feeling is actually all your power. It's just the frustration is you're having to wait. It's a sense of wanting to step into something deeper, which you are, and you will be after the new year, because it feels like almost like that timing, that synergy will just be right for you to continue your own journey. But you have to bring in the spiritual part. Somebody's yelling in the background, you need to connect with angels more higher vibrational energies, angels specifically. It said calling Gabriel. And I drew the crone. 11. 9. So for me, it's just becoming this wise woman and the angels helping you. And they're going to bring that energy when you're ready. And this is your soul agreement. Daughter of Cups. Or the Princess. So this is living in your authentic emotional self. There's also bringing in the divine feminine. I can't help thinking that this is a womb. And so I'm not quite sure what this exactly means for you, but that this is a womb. And in the womb, it's about rebirthing or birthing. It's about where the spiritual and the physical meet. This is also about sexual energy. And the reason I say that in terms of spirituality is because our sexual energy is our fuel for our energy system. It comes from the root chakra. This is just like Kundalini energy. And there's embracing your sexual and your feminine self. This is how these two are linked. The crone, and I'll say your spirit. Oh gosh, your spirit. And when you fully embrace your womanhood, for lack of a better term, you as a sexual feminine being, and not necessarily in the classic sense that I would say about connecting to the earth or feminine energies, but purely to sexual energy at this particular point. I'm sorry, I just can't not help looking at this card. Okay, so there's a turtle. I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a turtle holding that little, right here, this turtle, and holding what looks like a vessel. The turtle actually goes back to Native American lore, where she who fell from the sky landed in the water and created a turtle. And on the turtle became the land in which we all live on. And basically the turtle represents the world in its whole to Native Americans. So the earth, the world, the physicality of the world itself is supporting you in this journey. Know that you are connected to your fellow members in this chat in very, very particular and highly energetic ways. That somebody's saying you're not alone in this. The more community you have, the more you're going to come into yourself. That you can't do this alone. And it's time to ask for help from a variety of different places. And what they mean by help is support, chit chat, sharing ideas, sharing experiences, normalizing it for other people, normalizing it for yourself, and not afraid to really talk about. I always hear what goes bump in the night. I've told this to Justin before. It's what the things in the house, the things that are around you in non-physical that you can't see. It's time to start becoming more aware of them, because you've got a tremendous amount of guidance, spirit guides who are always around you. I hope that helped answer her question.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And she was giving some positive feedback on that. You know, she was agreeing with what you were saying about feeling stuck. And so I believe I just have one last question, and that is, let's see, Sorcha, if I could find you. Any tips on getting to know your tarot spirit guides?
Ooh, that's a great one. I like that question. Okay. So commonly what I like to do, and I started this fairly early on in my tarot practice. And it's funny, I've gotten some jokes about it. And if you ever see me shuffle, you know I'll shuffle for a very long time. I also have a hard time shuffling, but mostly because I don't want to bend the cards or drop them. I will shuffle. I'm shuffling right now. I will shuffle until I feel like I'm supposed to stop. And sometimes I will actually ask them, should I stop now? How should I cut the cards? And what you're doing is not only tapping into the tarot deck itself, but you're tapping into the person or people who are working for you. And you might hear a yes, you might feel a yes in your body, in your hands. If you just take a deep breath and kind of relax your hands, know that you're not in control of shuffling the cards, and just, I like to talk to people. I like to talk about their questions and shuffle, because it takes my attention off the actual cards. And I'm listening to the question, and then I'm bringing in the guides who are working with me. And so I'm using the tarot deck as a way to facilitate that conversation, especially if you do hear, if you do see, if you do feel, then go with that. But if you're at the stage of just getting into that or just developing that, then just concentrating on how the cards feel in your hand. And just letting it go. And you can also ask the question, come to a still point, ask the question, is this good? Is this good? Is the deck good? And kind of hear, kind of put your ear out like you were hearing a bird way in the distance, as well as becoming aware of how your body's feeling, and see if there's a change in it. And this is where building language is really important with spirit. So because I hear, usually that's my, I hear yeses or nos, but my recommendation is when you're doing a yes or no question, it's like, is the deck good? Is ask 3 times. So ask, is the deck good? And if you get like a ding or a yes, I get dings because that's kind of where, if I really can't hear them clearly, I ask for a ding. If I don't get the ding, I know it's a no. But this is where you get to tell them how you want to hear that. It's a negotiation. It's not just one way, because for some of us, we hear differently, or just where our vibration is. And I'll have multiple ways of feeling them, of hearing them, or feeling them next to me. That's a really good way, because then you're just starting that relationship. The other thing I could recommend is a shamanic journey, which actually I'm hoping to put together sometime either December or January, is a tarot shamanic journey workshop where you get to work with the cards, but actually, you know, that just gives me an idea of meeting your tarot guides in a shamanic journey too. If you're very free with your cards in the sense of that you're not following any structured questions, or even if you are asking the questions in your mind and then seeing what you're getting also, because and asking with particular intention that it be your tarot guide. Now, there's somebody saying they're all saying light a candle. Light a candle before you start to work for your personal work. Light a candle, and with the intention as you're lighting the candle, asking them to come forward and flip a card. And then use that energy. That energy specifically is around who's working with you. And then continue to work with shuffling the deck and ask them to kind of show you when the show or feel when the deck is finished. I mean, those would be some of just my basic tips. But if you do meditations or shamanic journeys, is inviting them in and calling for them specifically. But everybody likes the candle idea. So hopefully that gives you all some good insight and some good practical ways of connecting. I can't.
I muted because there was a fire engine. Oh, that was weird. Sorry about that. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. And Sarah, I think that was the last questions, but I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you to everybody in the chats. Thanks for stopping by and supporting us and, interacting tonight. It was very fun. And of course, Sarah, thank you so much for being here. It was really, really kind of you. And we went, almost 2 hours now. So I think that was just really, really powerful. You gave some really powerful readings here. And I hope everybody resonated with it. And I think we're going to say goodnight, as my friend Chris always says. We're going to love you and leave you.
Okay.
I feel sorry, all my UK friends. I know it's late there, so. But this was really, really fun. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Hang in there, though. Just don't go yet. We'll have a chat. But thanks, everyone, and we will talk soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks. Oh, wait. Before we go, I'm sorry. I rushed through that. I just wanted to ask, give you an opportunity to talk about your schedule, and where you can be reached. Because I did put down below your Instagram information. I also put in the description box your website at Sanctuary. But is there any announcements you want to make? I almost forgot to ask you.
I'm now conducting personal private reads and healings, but I'm also putting together a full schedule. I'm going to be doing a workshop on building language with spirit. I'm also going to be doing a past life regression. So I'll actually walk you through a guided meditation for you to retrieve your past life. If people need prompts in terms of some place to focus, I'll go and go in and kind of get a time period or a place to start for those who need it. Also going to be doing a certification program starting the first full week in January, and that's becoming a spiritual translator. That's for all modalities, tarot, mediumship, even recommend it if you're an energy healer, any kind of intuitive guidance work. And basically I break down how the energy field works in connecting with spirit, walking people through how to clear your field, make it high vibrational, what kind of tips or tricks, introducing you to guides, creating that space so that you can start to build language, start to strengthen that connection. We talk a lot about the theory about how that works, why it works in all those modalities. And we will do practice reads as well. I bring in breath work, how breath work is key to fueling the connection, sexual energy as well, the theories behind that. And then for those who would like certification at level 1, then they'll do a read for 2 people with feedback from those 2 people, a read for me and somebody who is already certified. But you can also take the class and opt out of the certification process as well, or do it later at a later time. And then I'm also going to be doing a basic crystal class, which I think is a really good place whether you're an avid crystal collector or crystal energy healer, or just getting into crystals, want to know more about them. I focus on, I think there's 18 key crystals that I think are really good for where people should start and how to attune to them. And once you know the process, you really can attune to any crystal, but it'll be through all of them through Zoom, so they'll be very interactive. And that's kind of, that's what's kind of on the docket for the next 5 months. And then in the summer, I'll be doing the basic, becoming a spiritual translator, but then I'll also offer classes in mediumship, past lives. So you can then branch out into specialties if you want, and I'm going to be doing an advanced becoming a spiritual translator as well, which is more holistic and broad.
Those
are some of the things that are coming up. So
sorry.
No, I feel free to check out our website. We'll have postings on Instagram as well.
Perfect. Okay, so Instagram and your website. And did you mention that you had a YouTube channel as well, or
We do, but we're still kind of trying to see how we want to set this up. We'll probably be having a YouTube channel. We just don't know what we want to curate on it quite yet.
Sure.
But there is a link to our YouTube channel on our website if you're interested in it. Also, if you're interested in just giving us feedback and contacting us to let us know what you might like to see up on YouTube for me particularly, that would be nice too. But Gabby and I, Gabby's my co-founder, we're trying to think about this differently in the sense that it adheres to kind of the spiritual components, and interaction with people is for me the key. Because if we're doing it, I can put all this information up on YouTube, but unless there's interaction, like something like tonight, where people get to interact, I feel like it's watering down the experience. And I think having community in a spiritual modality is critical. Talking to people who have had similar experiences is key for all of us as healers, to have that community in order to keep going with that work, share ideas, push these fields forward. So we're just trying to live. We're trying to live in that kind of ethos and not and do what's right for the kind of work that we're doing in terms of setup. So again, we're still trying to figure it all out, but that's kind of our take. So we might do things a little bit differently, and that's why.
Well, you are welcome to come on here anytime you like, and just let me know if you need me to make any announcements for you or anything. Keep me posted on everything, and I will definitely keep all my friends here on YouTube up to speed. So thank you again so much, everybody, and thank you, Sera. Anything else you want to add to that, or we're going to put a nightcap on and go to bed? Thanks, everybody. Good night.